what about the Broncos? I mean, you add Sean Payton, but does he have the weapons? And is Russell Wilson done?
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest question. Do I love Sean Payton? Do I believe in Sean Payton? Yes, but do I believe in Russell Wilson? No. Last year to me, I don't know if it was more of an aberration or more of us really seeing what Russell Wilson's all about. There's a reason why Pete Carroll and John Schneider moved off of him. Okay. It wasn't just because they wanted to roll the dice with Geno Smith and Drew Lock. It was because they saw a guy who was getting paid a ton of money and eating up most of their cap who wasn't that good. I
Right.
mean, that was the real deal there. So, the rest of the team's not that bad. I mean, they picked up Marquez Callaway. They've got Jordan Humphrey. They got Marvin Mims, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick. I mean, nobody that really buries the needle, so to speak, but they've got a decent team around them. It's just, how good is Russell's at this point, and what can he do? I don't know. I don't feel real good about him, and even Sean Payton may struggle to fix this guy.
And then how about the Arizona Cardinals? This one got them. They got them sitting there as the um, number 30 team, which I can't disagree with. You got Kyler Murray, who knows when he'll be back. Really, the knee injury, and that if he can't run, what can he do?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be in a big hurry to bring him back, and I don't think he's going to be in a big hurry to come back because this team I think is not good. Now, I do like obviously the draft pick of Paris Johnson. I think that helps their offensive line immediately. I do like their second round pick in BJ Ujulari, the pass rusher from LSU. I think he's got potential. So I liked their first two picks, but the rest of the draft was kind of like,
Yeah.
okay. And this is a team that needed to find a lot of guys in the later rounds, and I'm not sure whether they did that. The rest of their team kind of scares me, to be honest with you. I mean, you got James Conner as your featured back. You've got DeAndre Hopkins, who may or may not be there. They're shopping him around right now because they have no desire to pay that contract. And then they've got a bunch of midgets playing wide receivers. Excuse me, little people. Is that I want to be politically correct. So
Yeah.
I apologize if I just offended any of the little people watching the show. But that's who they've got at wide receiver. Marquise Hollywood, as he calls himself, Brown, and Rondale Moore. Both those guys are about 5'10", maybe at best. Rondale Moore, excuse me, is 5'7". So I just corrected that. So you got Rondale Moore at 5'7". You've got John calls himself Hollywood Brown at 5'9". So two of your starting receivers are shorter than me. That's not a good thing. Zach Ertz has kind of been since he left Philadelphia, and then
Right.
this offensive line, besides Paris Johnson, kind of scares me. And I'm looking at some of the depth charts right now that I've seen, and a lot of these things have them moving Paris Johnson to guard. I don't
Why?
think I have no idea. They've got Kelvin Beachum, who I think is 40 years old, and DJ Humphreys penciled in, who's coming off injury, as the starting tackles. I don't know about that. Beachum been in the league for 11 years and it's never really been good. And then, Humphreys has been hurt and not that good either. So I don't think you do that. I think you roll with Paris Johnson at tackle. If you want to start him out at right, I'm okay with that. But I don't think you put him at guard here. I think maybe you move one of those other two guys. Beacham's played guard before. And I think, honestly, Humphreys would probably be a better guard than Johnson. So we'll see what happens. But their offensive line concerns me. And like I mentioned, their little people, wide receivers, concerns me too. You gotta throw the ball low. I guess that's a good thing. They got a guy who's like 5'8", throwing it to guys who are 5'7". So maybe they'll just go, throw it underneath everybody else.
I would love to know. I would love to know the inside story, going back a couple of years when they're 10-0 or 9-0, and since then they have not been the same team. What happened specifically at that point where they just fell off the cliff and just can't seem to get out of their own way? I don't know, because they were like so good for the first 10 weeks of the season 2 years ago, and then all of a sudden it's like, bam, gone.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is that they had a favorable schedule that year, so they were winning some games. Also, they have a quarterback who's 5'9", 5'10", and 190 pounds, and he's just not able to stand up to the beating so far. The other problem with this team is Colt McCoy's banged up too. I don't know if you remember, but he got hurt at the end of the season. So you got Kyler Murray hurt, you got Colt McCoy kind of banged up. Who's going to be the starter for this team? Clayton Tune or David Blau? I mean,
good question.
This is the worst team. This is the worst team in the league, in my opinion, because not only does their offense suck, but I'm not really impressed with anybody on their defense either. Budda Baker's the one guy that's been productive over the last few years, and he wants out.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
I don't either. I would want out too if I was the one decent guy on this defense. You're not going to be considered good after this year. So yeah, I would demand a trade and refuse to play if I were him.
I mean, who do you think? Is there any team? If you look quickly, every year there's a team that comes out of nowhere. And I mean, last year I guess you'd say maybe the Jags, maybe the Giants, that come out of nowhere and put themselves on a map. Is there any team you think that's just lurking out there that could make a big jump?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, the team that I probably like the most, and I wouldn't say they come out of nowhere because they weren't bad last year, but they didn't make the playoffs, and that's the Steelers. I saw some good things that I liked out of Kenny Pickett. I think he's on his way. The offensive line has started to get a little bit better, and they added Broderick Jones from Georgia, who is going to start day one and be an instant upgrade. They also added Darnell Washington, the tight end from Georgia. So now they can run some 12 personnel with Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington and create some mismatches. I love George Pickens. I love Deontay Johnson. Najee Harris is going to be really good.
Yeah, they got to get him back on track.
Well, I like the backup too, Jalen Warren.
Yeah,
this is a kid that last year no one knew who he was. He kind of came. You talk about coming out of nowhere. He came out of nowhere and carried the ball some for them and averaged 5 yards a carry.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah.
And he was a backup pretty much at Oklahoma State. So I like him too. But my big thing is going to be on defense. This TJ Watt, if healthy, is going to get back to his old self. Alex Highsmith filled in admirably last year, considering he came in to basically replace Watt and had 15 sacks and 5 forced fumbles to lead the NFL. So this is the team. If you're asking me, who do I think is going to kind of step up and compete as one of the really good teams in this league that maybe wasn't considered as so last year, I like the Steelers. They also have a good coach.
They got a great coach, and the other thing is, it's always good to have that division. That division plays like old style football. They hate each other. They really hate each other.
I love that division. I love watching. I love watching those teams play each other because they all hate one another, and it's like they just give a little extra. When the Browns are playing the Ravens or the Ravens are playing the Steelers, it's like the old gut punch and in the bottom of the pile. Driving the guy to the ground through the whistle. It's just it's what football's all about.
It's just they're true rivalries because their states kind of butt up against each other, so they hate each other, and there's a real rivalry there. So it does make it interesting. I mean, I still never understood why the Dallas Cowboys are in the East, but that's good. That goes back years.
So that's a good question, and that's another good team to discuss here too, because a lot of people are picking. They're picking the Cowboys to be good, and I got to be honest with you, I am not seeing it. I think the Giants have improved. I think that the Eagles are leaps and bounds ahead of the Cowboys. I didn't like the Cowboys draft at all.
They stood pat.
Yeah, I mean, Schoonmaker, all the tight ends that were available in this draft, and you pick Luke Schoonmaker out of Michigan. I don't know. He was probably the guy I liked the least out of all those tight ends on the board. So I'm not in love with that. Mozzie Smith, he's okay. He's a pretty good D tackle. But this is a team that kind of like their D tackles to begin with, Jonathan Hankins and Osa. I'm not going to say his last name. This defense is going to be fine. The problems to me is going to be on offense. Tony Pollard's hurt. Zeke is gone. Who's going to run the ball? I don't know. Ronald Jones, nope. Deuce Vaughn, good luck having him on the field in pass downs, considering he's 5'5". That's what worries me. And, Michael Gallup's been oft injured. They've got a lot of injuries on their offensive line. Tyron Smith and Terrence Steele finished the year hurt. I'm not high on the Cowboys, and I kind of look to them to take a step back. I mean, they finished 12-5 last year, and I'm not sure they were that good.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, and the only thing they picked up was Stephon Gilmore, who's on his last leg, so I don't get where that's from. I mean, I think they get a lot because you got Micah Parsons. I think they think, Micah Parsons is that generational talent that can change a game by himself. But you can have the best defense, and if your offense can't move the ball, well, too bad.
Yeah, no, I think their defense is going to keep them in some games, but I got to be honest, I've been a big proponent of Dak, and I've been a really staunch supporter of him. But last year scared the hell out of me. I mean, he only played in 12 games, and he led the NFL in interceptions.
Yeah,
that's not good. And they're going to have to score some points. I mean, I know their defense is good, but they're going to get in games where no matter how good your defense is, they're not going to be able to stop the other team from scoring.
All right, let's before we take off, let's get, since we brought this up, it just came to my mind. Let's think of the three coaches we think are in the biggest danger. I'll start with McCarthy, because you got Dan Quinn sitting right there that could slide right in and take over for him.
Well, yeah, and they've been wanting to replace him ever since he got there.
Yeah, since he signed.
So I think that's a good one. I mean, to me, I got to go back to Josh McDaniels. I mean, this is a guy who took over a team that was in the playoffs the year before he got there. And then he comes in, takes the team over, and I think they expected them to take the next step. And instead of doing that, they finished the year 6-11. So I think this is a make it or break it year for Josh McDaniels. If they don't make the playoffs right away, I think he's done. And let's be honest, this team is loaded with talent, in my opinion. I mean, they added Jacoby Myers, they got Devontae Adams, they re-signed Josh Jacobs. They've got the best tight end group in the league, in my opinion, with Austin Hooper, Michael Mayer from Notre Dame, and OJ Howard. Not to mention the additions they made on defense with getting potentially the best pass rusher in the draft and Tyree Wilson. This team needs to win now, or they're going to be in big trouble. I think, to me, he's probably the guy on the hottest seat because he still hasn't proven he can be a coach in this league.
Well, I think you're on the right track there. The only thing I say about them, no matter how much talent they have and whatever, they still got the Chargers and the Chiefs who are in better positions than them right now. And I think you're right.
That's exactly my point. That's exactly my point, because they're in the toughest division in football, and he's not proven he can beat any of those teams. So right there, you've got the three other teams. You could be 0-6 in those games. Not to mention the rest of your schedule. The other guy that to me, I think is already starting out on the hot seat is my boy down in New Orleans. 7-10 last year. If you go back and look at their schedule, there was a number of games that they lost by one score. To start the season, they lost to Tampa Bay in the second week against Tom Brady, and they lost by 10, but it was a really, really close game that they were ahead most of the time and should have won. They lost by Carolina by one score. They lost to Minnesota by one score. They lost by one score to Seattle. Vegas blew them out. Then they lost by one score to the Rams, 3 points to Atlanta, 7 points to Cleveland, and 10 points to Philadelphia. So almost every loss that they had was a one-score game, and that's where the coach kind of comes into play.
Right.
So you finish 7-10, And to be honest, you look back at the season and there was a lot of winnable games there. So I think this is another guy who still hasn't proven he can coach in the league. I think he starts the year on the hot seat as well.
And I think the other guy, he's, and I don't know how he's going to do it. I love the man, Mike Vrabel. I think Vrabel's going to have a tough time with the hand he's been dealt. He's lucky to be in a like we talked about the division that he's in, but he's going to have a tough time. And I feel sorry for Mike Vrabel because I think he's a really good coach. I think in the right situation, in the right place, even or if Tennessee, if they got him the right players, they're competitive and they win. But
well, they've been competitive and won with not much talent, and right. And now this whole roster is just a disaster. I'm with you. I don't know how he. I mean, unless he just pulls a rabbit out of a hat this year with his coaching, which is possible given his coaching talent level, I think he could be out too. But this is a guy like. Chico in Carolina, this is a guy where if he gets fired, I think somebody hires him the next day.
Oh, I think so too. I'll tell you one thing. I mean, if I was being that he's an Ohio boy, if you want to straighten out the Browns, get Vrabel if he's loose.
Yeah, well, they'd have to fire their existing coach first, but yeah. I wouldn't hesitate to do that if I could upgrade that position. But I don't know if you saw Taylor Lewan, their former left tackle, he sued James Andrews over his failed ACL repair. So I'm not sure you're going to win that. I'm not sure you're going to win that medical malpractice suit with a guy who is the best surgeon in the world, and you're suing him because your ACL just didn't heal properly. Well, that happens sometimes, bud. I'm sorry. It's just he's claiming he's got a permanent injury to his right knee. Well. Yeah, you play NFL football, bro. That's going to happen. And I can tell you this is going to be a hard lawsuit to win, especially when you have a guy with James Andrews' reputation. I just don't think, I understand he's upset, but I don't think this is a lawsuit he can win. And I know a lot about these types of lawsuits.
No, I know you do. And the other thing about it is, like you said, most of the NFL guys who play end up with arthritic knees, knee replacements and stuff. It's part of the thing you sign up for when you decide to be a professional football player.
Well, and how many of these surgeries has James Andrews done and have the guys come back even better? I'm pretty sure he's the one that did Saquon's surgery.
Right.
I know he did Adrian Peterson, who came back better after his surgery or just as good. So you don't have much, much case study to point at and be like, oh, this guy screws up everybody's career. Half the time he saves people's career. So I just don't think you can put all the blame on James Andrews. Sometimes these surgeries don't pan out. Sometimes, your knee is just shot. But
sometimes, God forbid, I mean, I don't know the guy at all. And you'd think because he's a football player, he knows these things. But a lot of the surgery has to do with your rehabilitation.
Yeah.
You can have the greatest surgeon in the world operate on you. And if you don't take your rehabilitation seriously, it ain't going to help.
That's true. That's true. And sometimes the surgery just doesn't work. I mean, it's how everybody's body responds differently. We've seen guys that come back right away and they're, it's like they never left. You see other guys that takes them a year or longer to come back from. Some guys are never the same. So, it's just kind of a, one-off situation where I think for whatever reason, the surgery did not work.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right. Well, let's get back. Hopefully we'll be back on Thursday nights. My work has been going crazy lately, but hopefully we'll get back in line with that. We'll be back on Thursday night, talk more NBA playoffs, see if we know who the conference finals are going to be. Who do you think the odds for the conference finals?
Wow, that's a great question. Right now we've got Lakers are up 2-1. We got the Nuggets up 2-1. God, I'm going to take the Heat and I'm going to take the Celtics.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to take Denver, and I'm praying LA.
Well, this is the biggest game for the Lakers is tomorrow night. If they go up 3-1, they're in the driver's seat. If it goes 2-2 bad, like you said earlier, going back to San Francisco, man, that's going to be that's going to be probably a 7-game series, and we'll see how that lasts out.
Oh, I agree with you. I think if if the Lakers can win Game 4, I think they're in the driver's seat, and I think they'll have little trouble closing it out. But if they lose this next game, all of my faith is gone and shifts towards the Warriors, because we talk about experience. This is a team that has experience, and if you leave that door open at all, they'll walk right through it.
Yeah, Steph might come up with it. All right, people, thank you for joining us for a Saturday morning. Nate, what's the big plans for the rest of the day?
It's actually Sunday.
And
we're just going to do a little barbecue over at the Rent's house, see Nanny and Papa, and try and get a little rest before we restart another busy week.
Yeah, I know the feeling. All right, my friend, I will see you later.
All right, bud, take it easy.
All right, bye.